Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we're still working on the road to Macstock, talking to all the presenters and anybody else we can find that has something to say about the show and what all's coming up July 15 and 16 in Woodstock, Illinois. This time, I'm happy to welcome Tim Robertson. He is going to be hosting a session along with Guy Serle. You already heard from Guy, but he and Tim are going to do something a little bit special and a little bit different this year. We'll find out what that is in just a second. Today's edition of Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like Mac Voices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. I'm really pleased to welcome back Tim Robertson to Mac Voices. He's been here before. It's always great to talk to him, and it's especially great to talk to him when we're talking Macstock. Tim, welcome.
Thanks, Chuck. It's fun to be back. It's been a while. I don't do very many video things. It's almost always audio for me.
Yeah, well, that's okay. You know, we let people see what you look like once in a while. You know,
Might hurt viewership though.
I kind of doubt it. So you and Guy, you guys do a number of collaborative projects, or have over the years, I should say. This is going to be one that, from what Guy had told us, is going to be resurrected a bit from the past and brought into the future.
That's right. I'm going to say maybe, I think it was 2007, maybe 8, Macworld Expo San Francisco. Guy Serle and I did the very first MyMac quiz, and it was a sponsored quiz. I can't remember who was the sponsor at this point. I think it was Spec Cases. Remember when everything at Macworld was all about the iPhone and iOS, and that usually meant just cases everywhere. They actually sponsored MyMac to come out to Macworld Expo that year and cover them. And we didn't want to just do a podcast or do something pedestrian. We wanted to kind of draw a crowd for them, have some fun, make it about their products, but make sure the audience would have a good time. And so we thought we would do this quiz. The first one we did, it was me on a microphone, and Guy Serle literally holding up a laptop over his head, my laptop. It was the only laptop I had, so I was like, please don't drop it. And we would ask the questions that I came up with. And a lot of them were visual, so I'll give you an example. On the screen, you would see the old Claire's Works logo. But of course, it didn't say Claire's Works, it was just the logo. And my job was to get contestants, and if they could answer 3 questions correctly, they get a prize. That year, it was a spec case. The following year, we did it on a stage. I don't remember what the prizes were, but we gave away prizes on that too. And it was an overwhelming success. The one that we did at the spec booth, we were basically in the aisle right next to the spec case. And we closed that area of Moscone down. We had so many people. I've got video of somebody with a camera way up shooting down at us, and it's just a madhouse. I mean, when you're giving stuff away, it's fun, but it was a little different. It was a quiz. Do you know that logo? And so we'd have a contestant, and different people, that was AppleWorks. No, that was the old Photoshop. And they would just kind of yell out these answers, and it was suspenseful for the contestant. Now, the idea for taking that idea and bringing it to Macstock actually happened after the roundtable that I hosted last year. Talking to Mike, I said, we could do another roundtable, but you were involved in both the roundtables, the first and the second year at Macstock, and I love doing them. It's fun, but you kind of shortchange the people that are on the stage. How many times did I actually talk to you? Once or twice?
Yeah, it's tough when you have that many people, no question.
So the roundtable, it needs to be 2 hours long, or we probably don't need to do it, or narrow down the people. But then, which speakers do you choose to participate? And I wanted to bring something different, something exciting. I could do a talk up there I wasn't interested in doing that. I think the people that are speakers, such as you, Dave Hamilton, David Cohen, my partner on TechFan, he's doing one on the Raspberry Pi. And I wanted to do something different, so I talked to Guy first. I said, what if we do the MyMac quiz next year again, bring that back? He loved the idea, and here we are.
Okay, so is this going to be, well, first of all, are you going to let Guy hold your laptop above his head?
No.
Good. Okay. I admire you for doing that even once. So how is this going to work?
Yeah, but Guy is like 6'7", so.
Well, yeah.
If he's holding that over his head, that's like 8 feet up in the air. It was safe up there.
Unless it came down, and then
then it's not safe at all.
Yeah.
But it was so tightly packed, it would just bounce off a couple of heads, and somebody would catch it.
So how are you going to do this? I mean, are you going to pull? Is it going to be that same kind of free for all thing, or are you going to pull people from the audience, or?
I'll be up on the stage with a microphone and kind of the clicker to change the graphics. Some of it will be visual. Some of it will be simple trivia. Who was the third founding partner of Apple? Well, you know who that is. I know who that is. Will the audience member. Guy Serle will be in the audience with another microphone, and we will work together. I will talk to Guy. Guy will convince people in the audience to participate once you get a couple other people who want to join in. And it will be the banter between Guy and I trying to get contestants. And then once we have one, getting them to give the answers, trying to calm down the other people that are going to start shouting out answers. We want to make it fun. We don't want to make it super competitive. We want every single contestant to win something. And we're going to have, we've already lined up some good partners that are going to give away the prizes for us. But it's fun. It's going to be entertaining. It's not, you're not going to learn anything. That should probably be the MyMac quiz. You won't learn anything. But maybe you'll learn who knows their Apple and Mac and iPhone trivia, and you might not know some of those. So you might learn a little bit, but it's designed to have fun. It's designed to make people laugh. And I really, really love Macstock. I think it's a fantastic conference, but I just felt like it needed something different this time around, something that maybe isn't necessarily a talk, but gets the audience more engaged instead of being a passive sitting there and listening, learning a great deal. I learned a great deal from both of yours, but something a little bit more interactive. And I think these two things will line up well together.
I like the idea of having something entertaining. I think the roundtables, or excuse me, the panel discussions were entertaining.
Entertaining,
yeah. Well, there you go. I can't see how well you're dancing, but the top half is
not
doing
very well.
Not very well.
No, I'm a 40-something white guy. It's not.
No, that's not good.
No,
it's not good there.
Nobody wants to see that.
No, I thought the panel discussions were good, and you did a great job of trying to keep everyone engaged. But you're right, it is tough. When you have that many people, and as I recall, one time or both times we had two different sets of panels, which made it even more interesting.
We did that the second time. The first time it was just the one panel. The second time we had two separate groups of panels, so we kind of rotated people in and out.
Yeah, which that helps to in some ways. In other ways, it cuts the time of each panel in half. So, just
here's a trivia question for you, Chuck.
Uh-oh.
What got the most laughs by far at Macstock Expo on the stage so far? Do you remember?
Honestly, I don't. Where are you going with this?
It was about you.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I'm pretty funny.
I had offhand, just a throwaway joke. I said, many people don't know this, but Leo Laporte actually passed away a few years ago, and Chuck Joiners has had a puppet, and it's been. And I didn't even finish the joke, and everybody was just dying laughing. The joke was going to be that you've been Leo Laporte with a puppet.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was funny, but as soon as I said it, people just – and I had people coming up to me the next day even going, oh, my God, that was so funny. Mm. And now I said, Chuck's face was so red when you said it.
Well, now that you say it, I remember it. I guess maybe I've blocked it out.
I don't blame you a bit. It wasn't that humorous, but for whatever reason, it seemed to get the most laughs.
Well, it was either either that or Allison was picking on me about something, and I just kind of overlooked yours in favor of her insult. So
that was the first year. That was the first year where I was kind of talking about you and Allison right next to each other.
That's right, because Allison didn't make it in person last year because her daughter was having her first grandchild. So
that's right.
Yeah.
But I always have to have some Chuck Joyner dig in there somewhere. Good-natured, of course.
Oh, well, sure, of course. Everything is, that's the great thing about Macstock. You go and there are a lot of laughs. You're seeing old friends, you're making new friends. And I especially like what you said about learning something. I think that's a point that maybe we really need to stress a bit, that this is not just a big party, but this is a place where you're going to come away with a lot of knowledge of one kind or another.
And it's not necessarily just, I know it's called Macstock, but there's a lot more to what we do as Mac users and a lot of other technologies that we use that I think other Mac users would find very interesting. I'll give you a prime example. Right now, the whole tech world's a buzz about Nintendo, right? Well, did you know you can play, I don't know how legal it is, but you can play every single Nintendo game ever made on the classic consoles on a Retro Pi, which is nothing but a Raspberry Pi, a tiny little computer that you can install a program called RetroPie on, and it emulates these old arcade games. And David is going to be talking about the Raspberry Pi, but I'm way into that too, and it kind of fits in with being a Mac user. It's when you and I started, we didn't start as experts on the Mac platform, and we started even before OS X. We learned by breaking things and then having to fix it. That's how we became experts, right? We became the person that all of our friends would come to with their tech questions because, for whatever reason, we would break our own thing. Oh man, I better fix this because it's my computer. And then we learned how to fix it, and we became experts. We became experts on finding the answers to the questions of, I did this, and my Mac gets halfway through the little icons marching across the screen on OS 7, and then it just stops. What do I do? Well, you learn pretty quickly. You got to turn off extensions. You just hold down the shift key, reboot, figure out which one's causing the conflict, get rid of it. We figured that out, but not everyone did. So once we got that information, and you're like me, you're almost compelled to share it. And that's kind of what Macstock is. But it's not just about the Mac. It's about technology, the technology world around the Mac. Getting back to the whole little RetroPie thing, this little thing right here, it's just a 3D printed old Nintendo system, but inside of this is a Raspberry Pi. And it fits in the palm of my hand. It's tiny. And it's got every single Atari game ever made, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, ColecoVision. They're all, you could tell I like old video games. They're all on here. This, to me, is kind of the spirit of technology that I think most Mac users have. And I think most Mac users wants to learn about stuff like this. They want to learn about the other technologies that surround our world that other people are using. And Macstock is a perfect time to bring these different technologies and other people's expertise together to share in a very friendly, open, inviting atmosphere. And to me, it's kind of the promise that, or at least the ideal that we had of Macworld back in the day, that it never really materialized. It was just too big. It was too commercial. It was about the products on the floor and finding the latest and greatest Apple iPhone case or this new printer over here. It was never really about sharing the ideas and sharing your knowledge of technology. They had some really great talks there, don't get me wrong. But I don't think the vast majority of the people attending Macworld Expo did those things. I think they went there, they walked the showroom floor, they met a couple of their buddies, they went to a party that night, they did the same thing the next day, and then they flew home. Macstock is really bringing a core group of like-minded individuals as far as we're technologists and learning from each other.
I think you make an excellent point that gets lost in our Mac enthusiasm and our Apple-centric view of the world. Yes, it is Apple-centric, but it's by no means Apple exclusive. I mean, if I look around your studio or there, if you call that a studio, I'm not sure how you refer to it.
My home office.
Your home office, okay. It's absolutely littered with things that are not made by Apple, but everything kind of connects into my Apple universe in one way or another. Not everything, but pretty much everything does.
I'll give you an example. This is an iPhone.
Right.
And you see the arcade machines behind me, right?
Right.
I've got an app on here called, I forgot what the app's called, Zuli, Z-U-L-I. So this is the app, and it uses HomeKit and my Wi-Fi network. My arcade machines are plugged into Zuli Wi-Fi enabled plugs. So for instance, the Pac-Man one right here, right? I pull up this app. I've got one that says Pac-Man. I launch that, and it's just an interface for that machine. If I just hit that button right there, watch the arcade machine behind me. I didn't push it, did I? Yeah, I did. Oh, yeah, and then I pushed it again to turn it off. So I push that button. It turns on. It's running. I don't have to reach on, because the on-off switch is way in the back of that machine. It's 6 foot, well, not quite 6 foot, but it's tall and it's deep, and it's not easy to get back there. And if I want to turn it off, I hit that button and it turns it off. If I go back to my home screen, there's one that says Neo Geo. It's differently color coded. I push that one, that machine comes on. And I've got another arcade that you can't see over here. So old 1980s technology, brand new iPhone, a Zuli plug, an app, and all I'm doing is turning it on and off. But it makes my life easier to do that. And that's kind of what it's about for me. It's combining my interests in other technologies and how it can fit into the Mac world. And it does. Sometimes it just fits in by I'm using my Mac to look up information on something. This little guy again. How do I get information on here? I FTP into it through my Mac using CyberDuck. And that's how I put information on here.
Wait a minute. You just blew my mind. CyberDuck?
Yeah.
Wow.
You never use CyberDuck? It's an FTP client.
Oh, yeah, I know. But I didn't even know it was still around.
Oh, well, that's what I use.
Oh, okay.
And it is actually getting a little long in the tooth. It takes a while to launch now. So I probably, I'm lazy.
No, you just demonstrated something that I think is a key point for a lot of folks, and it's almost a cautionary thing. When you go to Macstock, there are going to be a lot of us advocating a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. And is it fun to try new stuff? Absolutely. Should you try everything new? You should probably read about it. I don't know that you need to try it, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. If you have something that works for you, great. But also don't be blinded to the fact that there might be something that can do it better, cheaper, easier, faster, or with more capabilities.
You and I are both, let's be honest, technology experts. I learned something, actually I learned many new things every single time I go to a Macstock. And I don't know if you can really put a price on that, but for the price of admission to Macstock, a hotel right down the road, maybe an Uber, maybe not an Uber, but some kind of a ride service, and the camaraderie that you're going to have with the people there, you're going to make new friends there. It's almost impossible not to. I think it's way worth the money. It's way worth someone's time to take off from work if you need to. If you're coming from California, yeah, I know flying into O'Hare is not the greatest. And the venue's about an hour north of Chicago. It's worth it. It's just worth it because it's so much fun. And it's run by Mike and Barry, who are so passionate about it. They're not getting rich off doing this. Trust me, I know, because I was with Mike very early in the process of the very first Macstock. And I know how much it costs. I know he's not going to get rich. if he makes money at all. He doesn't care about that. He cares about having an event that not just you and I or Guy Serle, who will do the MyMac quiz with me, the guy sitting there that's kind of shy, that doesn't talk to most people, the people in his home life doesn't really get his enthusiasm for this technology. This is where that person belongs. It also belongs to the very boisterous person who doesn't have a problem making an ass of himself on stage.
If you're listening to this, folks, our guest just pointed to himself.
But it brings all these people together, and it's amazing how much commonality we have. Let's be honest, there's a lot of divisiveness in the world right now. Even just in the United States alone, in politics and religion. This is a time where you can put all that aside, and here's something we have in common that's not against somebody else. It's not putting someone else down or putting yourself up on a pedestal. It's about learning new things together, meeting new friends and old friends. I saw Brian Chafin last year, and we probably spent 3 hours just hanging out and talking, not about technology. It was great. It was fantastic. I haven't seen him in a while. And I'm looking forward to Dave Hamilton. He'll be back this year. He missed last year. He'll be back this year. I believe he closes the show. I can't wait to see these people again. And they can't wait to meet new people. So if someone's out there and they're thinking about, I don't know, it's kind of it's not expensive, but I don't know, it's a couple days off from work and it's getting to Chicago. Is it really worth it? It's absolutely worth it. It's a fantastic show.
I can't agree with you more. And you're talking about flying to Chicago. One of the things I think that's so great about this is it's the center of the country, so it's not like you're having to cross the entire country. O'Hare has a lot of flights coming in and out,
a lot,
for better or worse. But that just means that you can get there fairly easily and fairly economically.
And the thing is, for those who used to go to Macworld, and you have this, getting my ticket to Macworld was probably the least expensive part of it. It's the flight. That's pretty expensive. But, man, the hotels in San Francisco will just kill you. I mean, they're so expensive. Even I stayed in a really crappy hotel pretty far away from Moscone one year, and it was still expensive. At Macstock, we're right down the road. There's a whole bunch of hotels, and I think I'm paying like $129 a night, if that.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
It's probably a third or less of what you get you would do at San Francisco.
A night.
So, per night, right.
Yep. And there's decent restaurants where it's not expensive to have lunch, dinner, breakfast. And the venue itself isn't Moscone. It's not a huge venue. So it promotes everyone is here together. That's why I think the MyMac quiz will work, because pretty much everybody that's at Macstock is going to be in that auditorium while we do this quiz. So we'll have a lot of people that can participate, and it's just going to be a fun atmosphere. It's going to make people laugh and have a good time.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, like I said before, I think it's a great addition to it. Yeah, it just adds one more reason to come to Macstock, because you're going to have fun. And you're right. As soon as you walk in the door, you're with people that are just like you. They have a passion for whatever reason. They have a passion for this stuff. They are technologists of one degree or another, and I guarantee you're gonna learn something. You're gonna find somebody you want to talk to, or you're gonna come away with something you want to know more about. And
if you like podcasts and you listen to a lot of Mac podcasts, a lot of podcasters are going to be there. You are. I'm going to be there representing TechFan. Guy Serle is going to be there representing MyMac. You did, by the way, earlier when we first started to talk about Guy and I have collaborated on a lot of things. I was the original, I created the MyMac podcast, but I retired from that. And Guy's been doing that show longer than I've ever done that show. So Guy Serle and I have been working together for many years. We've got a lot of chemistry, especially in person and in front of an audience. The first time we ever did anything was the 100th episode of the MyMac podcast. We recorded it live in an Apple store in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Guys flew in from Virginia. Grand Rapids is about an hour north of where I live. And we actually did it inside of an Apple store, and we gave away a whole bunch of products. The manager got in trouble for that big time. They didn't get corporate approval. But that's how far back this goes. That was 2007. I mean, the MyMac podcast is one of the original podcasts out there, and it's still going strong. And Guy Serle hosting it, I mean, it's fantastic. So that's where that collaboration comes from. We've been working together a long time. I know things to get him laughing. He knows things to get me laughing. And we're pretty good at getting an audience involved, letting them participate. And we look for the people that we can kind of tell want to do it, but they don't want to raise their hand. But there's always people in the crowd that are like, oh, I would do really well at this. I'm kind of shy. I'm not going to raise my hand. I will laser focus in on those people every single time. And you get those people to stand up and ask questions. And those are the best contestants in this kind of a game show thing, because they're sincere, they're smart, they're a little embarrassed, maybe a lot of embarrassed, but we'll get them laughing. It's always going to be a fun atmosphere when Guy Serle and I kind of do this thing.
Well, you are both entertainers in your own way. As you know, as well as delivering lots of great information, but I think that you guys do have that fun factor going. So it's going to be a blast.
Otherwise, there's too much seriousness in the world, and you can't always just learn important stuff at these events. You got to have a little bit of frivolousness, if you will.
I wouldn't have used that word. I would have used fun.
I like the fun word too.
I think fun and
irrelevant maybe.
Yeah,
and you can walk away with something cool. I mean, it's not like it's just the quiz and that's it. There's actual prizes that we're going to physically be handing people things.
And the whole trivia thing to me is always fascinating because sometimes just by virtue of hanging around this world, you know a lot of it, but there are other things that are just classic trivia. It's fun to know. You're not going to gain anything from it, but it's fun to know.
Yeah, and look, the people that are coming to this, they're probably pretty passionate about Apple. And when I say Apple, I don't necessarily mean the company Apple. I try to separate those. When I say Apple in the Macstock sense and in the MyMac quiz, what I'm really talking about is the Apple community, which, look, Chuck, Apple's one of the biggest tech companies in the entire world. You're not really supposed to love that company. You know what I mean? It's a conglomerate. It's worldwide. They sold more iPhones and made more money in the time we've been talking than you and I together and everyone we know will ever make in our lives.
Wow,
that's how much money.
That's depressing.
But it's true.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's not what drew me into Apple. It was initially. It was the community that I found way back in 1995 when I started MyMac. It was that community that drew me in. And I've never, ever been disappointed in the community of Mac users in that entire, what's been 22 years now. I've never been disappointed. I've always been an advocate for that community. And Macstock reinforces my love of this community.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't know whether we're just completely biased or whether there's something as special as we both think there is about this community. But one way or another, if you have a bent in this area, you are absolutely going to have a great time if you come to Macstock. No
absolutely.
Question. So the one question, which one of you is going to wear the classic game show host plaid jacket?
I'll probably just wear a TechFan t-shirt because there's nothing I don't like more than self-promotion.
Okay.
But although I'm promoting a company that they don't even have that name anymore, Smile on MyMac. They're just Smile now, aren't they?
They're just Smile.
And I think Jean herself, who's not even with the company anymore, was the one who personally gave me the mug. I don't know. I probably will just wear a t-shirt. But if there's a choice between dressing as a game show and slicking the hair down, that's going to be Guy. I mean, that's the first year we've got video of Guy wearing a red shirt. You almost can't see his face. That red shirt is so bright on video.
Well, Guy would not mind me saying this, folks. I know there is a problem with the slick down hair.
But when I first met Guy and we first started going to Macworld Expo, yeah, he's a little up here, but he had the whole Hulk Hogan thing going. I mean, Guy is 6'7". He's like a fifth degree black belt, the most gentle guy in the world, but not someone you probably want to mess with. But he's huge, and he had this big Hulk Hogan mane, and I'm like, that's him? You're kidding me. And then when he got that kind of shaved off and went the short look, it looked like he lost 20 pounds. So if he starts right now, he might be able to get a little bit more back here, party in the back and business in the front thing. And we can kind of start slicking that back. Or a wig.
A wig.
Could you imagine like a black Donald Trump type of wig that you can just kind of plaster down with like a little swoop thing going on? Guy could rock that massively.
Absolutely. Listen, I think though that the very first image or whatever that you put up for the contest should be Guy with the Hulk Hogan look. I would love to see that.
I've got pictures.
Okay.
I've got video. Are you kidding me? Okay. Pictures. I got video.
Okay, so folks, don't anybody tell Guy about this. We'll see if we can get away with it.
Yeah. We'll tell him this video, he can't watch it. It's infected with Ebola. He can't watch it. Stay away from this video, Guy.
Yeah, good. Tim, I'm really looking forward to seeing you and seeing everybody. And I hope we'll see a lot of the viewers and listeners out there as well.
That'd be great.
I want to make sure I give you a chance to talk a minute about where folks can find you when you're not here and when you're not at Macstock, because I know you do TechFan. You do one or two other things.
I owned MyMac.com, and like I said, we've been doing that since 1995. It wasn't MyMac.com back then, of course. There was no dot anything in 1995. It was just MyMac Magazine. You remember DocMaker?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
That's what MyMac started. It was for those who don't know, which is, let's be honest, probably 90% of people out there or more. DocMaker was kind of a precursor to PDF. Way back in the day, if you sent someone a file, if you didn't have the same fonts, you couldn't really open that document and see it correctly. There was no inline graphics document. You had to have the application that the same person that created it had, and you had to include all the graphics, and it was a mess. Well, DocMaker, you could kind of lay out a book or a magazine with inline pictures. The text would be correctly spaced and formatted. And the export wasn't a document like PDF. It was technically an application. And it was a very small footprint. I think the first issue was 96K in size with graphics. And so that's how we started uploading to AOL, eWorld, First Class BBSs, CompuServe, you name it. If there was a place that I can put that first issue out, I was. And it kind of grew from there. In 2000, we went web only. So I've owned that since 1995, and the podcasting thing started in 2004. The person who actually helped me get my RSS feed set up, because I was stupid and couldn't do it, was Adam Curry, the guy who invented podcasting. Well, one of the inventors of podcasting. He set my original RSS feed up. So that's how long we've been podcasting. We wanted to expand that, so we started the MyMac Podcasting Network, and we produce 13 shows on a monthly basis. Each show is either weekly or bi-weekly. So at mymac.com, just in podcasting, we're probably pushing out on a monthly basis 25, 30 hours worth of content. I mean, it's quite impressive how much stuff that we push out there. And mymac.com is still going strong. We do a whole lot of product reviews. Not a lot of sites, if you've noticed, Chuck, does independent product review of Mac products. We do that all the time. That's pretty much our bread and butter. It's not loaded down with advertising. Advertising. Why didn't I think of that before? It's a passion project. We've got a stable of 15 to 20 writers that write product reviews on a weekly basis for us. And on top of the network, the podcasting network, I do TechFan with David Cohen. And originally I started the MyMac podcast. I quit that podcast to start OWC Radio, the first one, Other World Computing, who, by the way, MacSales.com, are a sponsor of Macstock because they're literally right down the road from where the venue is occurring. I started that podcast, so I retired from the MyMac podcast. That's why Guy is the host of that show. When I left OWC Radio 1.0, I didn't want to go back to the MyMac podcast because that's Guy and Gaz's show at that point. So I started a brand new show called TechFan, which allowed me to talk about more things than just the Apple universe. Because as you can see behind me, I'm a fan of technology. Apple stuff is usually my favorite, but it's not my only favorite. I like all kinds of stuff. I'll give you an example. Chuck gave me something today, crap, in an email because he's like, "You're using Outlook on your phone?"
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah. And I said, yeah, I think it's probably the best email client on iOS. I don't really care who makes it, well, unless it's Samsung. I'm really not a fan of Samsung right now. But I think Microsoft has come a long way. They're not the Microsoft of old. They're trying. Let me put it that way. And I think there's a different culture springing up at Microsoft. So I'm a technology fan, so we started a new show called TechFan, and we've been doing that since 2010. So it's the podcasting thing is kind of what I'm best known for now. I don't do a whole lot of product reviews at MyMac, but everything that goes live at MyMac goes through me. I look at every single thing before it goes live. And Macstock is just kind of an outgrowth of what I was doing at OWC at the time. I was actually employed at OWC briefly when Macstock started. That's how Macstock and OWC kind of came together. And I'm very passionate about this show because personally, it aligns with everything I'm already doing. Podcasting, it's got a bunch of podcasters there. Technology, a lot of different technologies. The Apple community happens to be right there, and it's really kind of close. It's 4 hours for me to drive there.
There's the key. The key.
4 hours. I still got to get a hotel. That's too far to drive back and forth. But it's 4.5 hours tops.
Yeah.
Got to go through Chicago, but yeah.
I probably have that much travel time, but I'm flying part of it, so.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's just it. It's not that far from almost anywhere in the U.S., and we have international attendees too. So
yeah, I the first year I remember Gaz came from the MyMac podcast, and I brought Chad Perry, who was my original co-host on the MyMac podcast. So we've got a couple pictures of the very first MyMac podcast host and the current MyMac, and that spans, what, 12 years? Has it been that long? Yeah, 90. Yeah. Well, I almost said 1990. 2004 to 17. So that's what, 13 years.
Yep.
13 years.
Time
the
flies.
originals and the new hosts. Well, the current hosts, I should say. And it's like we're all the same people. It's still the same community. It's a different community in some respects because people come and go, but it's still the same spirit. And so what am I doing? I do a lot of things, but it's still about this community of tech users out there. I love this community, Chuck. I really do.
Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun. No question.
I know.
Social media presences you want to promote?
Just at MyMac on Twitter and MyMac Online on Facebook. Mostly it's about the Twitter. I mean, I don't post a whole lot of stuff other than, here's the latest thing at MyMac. I don't have time to do that, to be honest, Chuck. I'm recording podcasts. I'm editing stuff at MyMac.
I was kind of
joking. I don't actually play them all that often, to be honest with you. That was probably the first time either one of them has come on in a couple months. Honestly, I was kind of joking about the whole self-promotion thing. If I was smart about it, I would be using social media to really push the MyMac stuff and the TechFan stuff, but I don't. I've always been a little self-conscious about that. We were never really us two type of a publication at the height of Macworld, where everybody else was kind of all doing the same thing and looking for, I don't want to say approval, but everybody kind of was clicking up, if you know what I mean. And that whole time, I never did any of that stuff. We would get to Macworld, and it was all about coverage. You, in particular, can appreciate that probably more than most, because other than the MyMac staff, and we always had a pretty big staff there, covering the event with pictures and articles and what have you, every Macworld, I would see you with your camera guy, and your microphones making content and content and content. You're interviewing this person, you're talking over here, you're setting up over there. You were another person, and I always respected you for this. You were at Macworld, you weren't there to party. You weren't at Macworld to rub elbows with everybody. You were creating content for your listeners and your viewers at home that couldn't be at the event, that didn't understand the atmosphere, but you could bring a little bit of slice to that. And you did that every year I was at Macworld. I always saw you creating content, and props to you, man, because you always created really good content. You weren't there just to hang out and buddy with everybody and try to be part of the gang. You were there to create your stuff, and I always respected that, because you're a kindred spirit in that regard. I wasn't there to buddy and try to pretend I was more important than I am, or be in that group over there, and I didn't care about any of that stuff. I wanted to create the content for the people that weren't there, bring the flavor to them.
Yeah, and I appreciate the kind words. Did
you notice anybody was noticing that you were like that you were doing that? Because I did. I noticed it every time.
Yeah, I thought of it as content, but I also thought of it as these are some really interesting people that are doing interesting things. Now, when you'd interview somebody with a baby product, okay, that's not for me. But there are people out there.
You've got listeners, and
yeah, and invariably, sometimes you stop at a booth that you have no personal interest in, and you walk away with, wow, that is a really interesting product. I learned something that I'll use somewhere else.
That's probably what I miss about Macworld the most, other than the community itself, was a clearinghouse of where I can learn about the new stuff coming out. Yeah. That just doesn't exist. I know Apple's whole, we have a Macworld Expo every week at our stores. Yeah, but you're showing the same products week after week. To me, it's not fun at all going to an Apple store. It's too crowded. It's the same stuff. I don't get it. If I go into an Apple store, it's specifically to get something and get out as quickly as possible. I'm not hanging out at the Apple store. Macworld Expo was about the small vendor and the big vendor. And I do kind of miss that. That's not what Macstock's about. It's a totally different show. I know some people like to make it like they're related or something. They're really not. There isn't an expo portion of the show like there was at Macworld, and that's a good thing. Yeah,
I think they're related in the fact that you're getting, to take it back to the beginning here, you're getting like-minded people together. It may be for a little bit different thing, but there is that social aspect, there's that community aspect that very much carries over. The rest of it, there were conference sessions at Macworld, and they were terrific. Some people never went to those. Some people just spent all their time on the floor, and vice versa. So it
was a cool place to meet people.
Yeah.
The guy who invented the mouse, Engelbart, was that his name?
That's a piece of trivia. I do not know.
Yeah, I cannot remember his name. He passed away a few years ago now. But one of the last Macworld that I went to, I'm outside and doing something that's unhealthy. And it was something that, whatever. I'm outside. I just got done talking to Sean King, of all people. And he's like, Doug Engelbart, that's his name. He goes, isn't that Doug Engelbart? And I went, it is. I think I've seen a picture of him twice. But this is the guy who invented the mouse. The mouse. I mean, maybe it's not the greatest piece of technology, and it's kind of ubiquitous at this point, but to me, that's a huge invention. I mean, an XY axis and clicking and dragging, and it's a marvel of engineering when it was invented. It was just a marvel. And he's just standing there getting a little fresh air. There's nobody talking to him. Almost nobody walking by knew who he was, but I knew who he was. And I went over, introduced myself, said, hey, I just want you to know, I know it's not the only thing you did, but thank you very much. It's that invention combined with everything else. Because remember, Steve Jobs, when he saw the Xerox PARC machine, it wasn't just the windows on there, the windowing system. It was also how you interact with it using the mouse. So it was a combination of those two things. So if he wouldn't have invented that, somebody would have invented something like it. But he's the one who did it.
Yeah.
And he's a fascinating guy. Yeah. And I talked to him for probably 20 minutes. If I would have been smarter, I would have pulled a microphone out and did an interview like I did with Sinbad. But it was fascinating. I wish there was opportunities to meet people like that, because those pioneers are unfortunately getting up in age, and we're losing some of them at this point. Where else can you meet people like that? It really doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
But Macstock is a nice addition to what we lost with Macworld, without all the clutter, without all the things that we didn't like about Macworld. It's just a great show. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Well, I will see you in July. I'm looking forward to it as always. I'm anxious to see now what you talk Guy into.
I don't have to talk Guy into anything. Are you kidding me? He's the one that comes up with all the crazy stuff.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So we'll see you there.
Looking forward to it, Chuck.
Tim,
thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much. It's always a pleasure. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. I keep saying it. I really mean it. I know Tim means it. Everyone we've talked to means it. We want you to come to Woodstock, Illinois. Join us for Macstock 2016, July 15 and 16.
17.
15, 16, 16, 17.
Yeah, but it's 2017 now.
Oh, what did I say?
16.
I did? Okay, 2017. Yeah. All right. I had such a good time last year.
He's in the past. It was so much fun.
It was. I don't want to let it go. 2017, yes, Woodstock, Illinois. Go to macstock2017.com. I'll get that right. Register. We will see you there. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the MacVoices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.